Before we go into the next story, I just want to prepare you that what you are about to see may bother you a bit, but we have to discuss it. I'm not one to cover Marianne Williamson often on this show, but something happened the other day, and I think we do need to discuss this because this is not okay. Actually, after I saw this, I retweeted this and I tagged Marianne and I said, I think you should apologize to Marcel. So what happened? Marianne, she's in South Carolina right now, so she's holding different meetings to meet with residents there about her candidacy. This is not something that's unusual. That was not the issue. Apparently, during this particular meeting, one of the residents, which is Marcel, you may remember him. He ran against Jim Clyburn for Congress. He was very vocal about the way that Jim Clyburn has basically neglected people in his district. It's one of the poorest districts in South Carolina. I'm familiar. I went to college in undergrad in South Carolina, so I'm familiar with it. And he is outspoken. Now, I have to retract something. When I was on this show the other night, I said that Marianne Williamson should focus on her strength, which is reparations. I think I need to pull that back based on what I heard her say in this exchange. Because Marcel is going to proceed to explain to Marianne that he appreciates the fact that she is brave enough to have it on her platform. But at the same time, he's going to try to explain to her why her numbers are incorrect. And I have documentation to back that up as well. Marianne's response, not too good. Not too good. And people have been calling it out. Even people I didn't expect to call it out have been calling it out. But this kind of thing, the statement that she made, this cannot be tolerated. So let's get started with the very first clip. This is a thread. So Marcel says, I went to see Marianne Williamson today. Incredible team. So he starts off by giving her a compliment. However, I am good on her. While I was stating facts on how other groups have gotten and continue to get reparations, when I got to Holocaust survivors, she pulled the BS. Well, let's just get into it. Here we go. It starts off okay.
Hi, yes, so I concur with a lot of things that you said. One, I ran for office and I'm running yet again against the king maker, James Clyburn. But my attitude, if you're the king maker, then your district should be living like royalty, and they're not. So I know exactly how they try to shame you, exclude you, and slander your name. And my thing is this, we as Americans need to grow a backbone, okay? When did we start worrying? Well, see, I'm a Black American Gullah Geechee. We've always had to stand up and fight for everything. And I know you was talking about how things used to be. Well, I was born, my great-great-grandparents were still alive. My great-grandparents were all still alive except one. And they told me the good old days for y'all weren't good old days for them. So they're used to having to fight and be slandered and be excluded and be denigrated. I want to thank you for being, and I'm going to say this because they have to say man enough. I'm going to thank you, a woman, for being man enough to do not what's popular, not what's easy, yes, but what's right. Yes. And you're running on a reparations platform.
Okay. So far, it's starting out okay. He thanked her for doing what he feels is right. But then things go south.
And that's the right thing to do. Now, I do want to give you some pointers if you're open to it about your reparations plan, because I face all kinds of backlash, which I gladly accept. I'm here for it. My ancestors who were fighting in these rice marshes and swamps, didn't back down to the backlash, I will be an insult to my great-grandmother who died at 101 if I back down because of people saying mean things to me. One, reparations comes from the federal government. It does not come from your tax dollars. America pays reparations every single day. They're paying it to the Ukrainians right now. They're paying it when they take care of people in the country illegally and go up to the trillions. They paid it to the Japanese Americans who were interned. Even though my great-grandfather helped to save the Jews from the Nazis, he came back to America and he was locked out of the GI Bill, which gave trillions of dollars to mainly white veterans that they say built the middle class. And yet those same Jews right now are getting reparations. People in Wall.
Wait, I have to stop you.
Let's pause there for just a second before we get into the thick of it, because basically, you know, he has a point here when he talks about the GI Bill. I've talked about that before in the show. I told you that whole New Deal, like some of those policies that were implemented that were a part of FDR's New Deal actually discriminated against Black people and indigenous people in this country. That GI Bill was one of them. He also goes on to mention that reparations were given to the Japanese Americans because of the Japanese internment camps. That is true. In fact, if I remember correctly, I believe that happened under President Reagan. So that is true. Let's go on. We back up just a tad, because now she's asking him, what are you talking about in reference to Jewish people?
To America, and he was locked out of the GI Bill, which gave trillions of dollars to mainly white veterans that they say built the middle class. And yet those same Jews right now are getting reparations. People in Wall.
Wait, I have to stop you. I am a Jew. What Jews right now are getting?
Okay. So what he ended with there is that he said that Jewish people right now are still getting reparations. And that's when Marianne intervenes here and cuts him off. And she says, what Jewish people are getting reparations? So this is part 2, where Marcel comes in and he says, everything I said was factual, including the fact that her reparations plan amount is insultingly low. This is another piece that comes up as well. My thing is, with this whole exchange, even if Marianne disagreed with him, I think it was the way that she responded and something that she said, which I really, really think rubbed people the wrong way. Let's go on.
I have to stop you. I am a Jew. What Jews right now are getting reparations?
The Jews who are Holocaust survivors.
Now is true. What?
The Jews who are Holocaust survivors.
But they're not getting reparations from the American government.
No, they're not. What the American government did in 2014 agreed to facilitate a $12 million payback to Holocaust survivors.
Okay, is that true? Now pay attention to what he said. He said in 2014, the American government facilitated it. They facilitated $12 million payment of reparations to survivors of the Holocaust. Just remember that, because I think she heard that differently. So here's her response.
$12 million payback to Holocaust survivors.
That had nothing to do with the U.S. government.
No, the U.S. government did facilitate that payback.
That facilitation is with an administrative Germany. Okay. Germany paid reparations.
Well, so my point is, though, but
the United States did not pay reparations.
But the United States government facilitated, and the point still exists.
So she's saying that Germany was actually the country that paid those reparations. But what he's trying to explain to her is that the U.S. government still facilitated it, and that was under Obama. We're going to show receipts here in a second. Let's continue.
Me, a descendant of American slaves, haven't seen a penny yet. At the end of slavery, and I know you probably know these numbers, $42 to $84 trillion was the value of those of us who were enslaved. And I like the fact that you're running on reparations, but you have $1 trillion as the amount, and that is insultingly low.
Okay, the other problem here was the amount that she has on her platform. I'll show you a screenshot of that in just a second as well. The dollar amount that she has listed for reparations is $1 trillion. I'm going to explain to you after we get through the videos why that's actually problematic. Marcel's going to mention part of that too, but I'm going to show you why that number is significantly low compared to what the dollar amount recommended was actually back in the 80s. So you'll see that in just a second.
I understand that you may have to make it palatable because to the American public, but if we want to do what's right, we got to do what's right. And the amount that we are owed is at $70 trillion minimum. If you just do $1 trillion, they said in the 20th century, Black Americans lost $400 billion in just land theft alone. That doesn't go to Jim Crow. That doesn't go to being left from the Homestead Act that gave white Americans $10 trillion and 300 acres. So I love the fact that we're on a reparations plan.
So he's saying that the minimum should actually be 70 trillion. Let me make sure I said that correctly. Hold on. Make sure that's 70 and not 7. Give me a second.
The amount, and that is insultingly low. And I understand that you may have to make it palatable because to the American public, but if we want to do what's right, we got to do what's right. And the amount that we are owed is at $70 trillion minimum. If you just do $1 trillion, they said in the 20th century, Black Americans lost $400 billion in just land theft alone. That doesn't go to Jim Crow. That doesn't go to being left from the Homestead Act that gave white Americans $10 trillion and 300 acres. So I love the fact that we're on a reparations plan, but your plan is going to have to get those numbers right. It's got to be lineage based. And
okay, so he's not faulting her for having a plan, but he's trying to explain to her that her numbers are incorrect. They actually are. I'm going to show you that her numbers are incorrect. And also that he said it has to be lineage based as well, meaning that it has to be given to people who are descendants of slavery in this country, not just someone who is Black per se. So for example, this is where some people get confused. But when people talk about lineage base, that means like for some people who are friends of mine that are Jamaican and they were born in this country, but their parents were born in Jamaica. So they're a first generation immigrant in the US. They would not qualify for lineage based reparations because technically, because their parents immigrated here, they are not considered a descendant of slavery.
The money needs to go directly to us. Because when the Japanese Americans got their money, it didn't go to a council, it went straight to them. Those Holocaust survivors, that money goes straight to them.
That's right.
We deserve to have it even more so.
Yeah, so let me say a couple of things. First of all, I honor how you stand up for your ancestors, and I stand up for mine.
That part right there. That part right there. Oh boy, Marianne, you did not have to say that.
I honor how you stand up for your ancestors, and I stand up for mine.
She said, I'm honored that you stand up for your ancestors, and I'm going to stand up for mine. I don't know. Here we go.
The United States has not paid $1 of reparations to Jews for the Holocaust. That is number one. And by the way, as far as some of the things you said about Roosevelt, which was true about his treatment of Black people, he didn't do well by the Jews during the 2 years when Hitler said they could still leave. So I will not stand here while anti-Semitic tropes are repeated.
That part right there. This is the part that a lot of people are upset about. Let me rewind back. Again, you can disagree with people. But now, listen to what she says.
That is number one. And by the way, as far as some of the things you said about Roosevelt, which was true about his treatment of Black people, he didn't do well by the Jews during the 2 years when Hitler said they could still leave. So I will not stand here while anti-Semitic tropes are repeated.
She said, I will not stand here and listen to anti-Semitic tropes from you. So now a lot of people on social media are saying, wait a minute now. So if we question the amount that you have for your reparations plan, if we push back on that, if we try to explain to you the history, now all of a sudden we're anti-Semitic? Do you see the problem here, people? He pushes back, But this really gave me Karen vibes. Like, seriously, I saw this on Twitter and I was like, oh, I can't believe she said that one. Can't believe she said that one. That was not good. Not good.
That's not anti-Semitic. That's the truth. That's the truth. That's the truth.
Then she tried to double down. So there's more that we can get into as well. Like I said, this is a thread. She doubled down on it.
That's not anti-Semitic. That's the truth. That's the truth. That's the truth. That's the truth. Holocaust survivors are getting reparations. That is not anti-Semitic. That's the truth. And I will continue to do so. And standing up for my ancestors means speaking the truth. Holocaust survivors did get 14 trillion facilitated. That is a fact. That is a fact. I don't know what it meant. All I know that my ancestors have not gotten a penny.
Okay.
Yikes. This is some of the way that you respond sometimes to people is important. For this piece right here, I started to see a different side of Marianne during this discussion. Look at the way that she walks over to watch.
Holocaust survivors did get 14 trillion facilitated. That is a fact. That is a fact. I don't know what it meant. All I know that my ancestors.
You don't know. You don't know because it's not true. Is it not true? Because see, Marcel, this is someone, he's very much involved in reparations organization. I believe he's a part of FBA. This is something he knows a lot about. Let's go on.
Have not gotten a penny. Okay. My ancestors have not gotten a penny. That's all I know. And it's an insult for the American government to facilitate a facilitation of payment to Holocaust survivors while my great-grandfather is still alive and he fought to save the Jews from the Nazis.
Excuse me. It is because I'm Jewish that I feel so strongly about reparations.
And I feel strongly about reparations for my people too.
Germany gave $89 billion in reparations to Jewish organizations long before 2014. The fact that I am from a people who was wronged and to whom Germany paid reparations, the fact that I am aware as a Jew that even though reparations doesn't mean the Holocaust didn't happen, any more than reparations would mean slavery didn't happen, reparations paid by Germany to the Jewish organizations, they were not directed to Jews, they were to Jewish organizations, has gone far to establish not only financial restitution, but also emotional and psychological healing between Germany and the Jews of Europe.
Right here.
That is
what the baby Ethernet? No. Oh my God.
Right here.
Obama administration has awarded $12 million for assistance to Holocaust survivors. This happened in October 2015. I don't lie and I know my information.
So he was looking the information up on his phone. So it's 2015. I'm going to show you that article in just a second, but he was trying to tell her that this was done. He's not disputing that Germany did not provide like reparations. He's not saying that. What he is saying is that there was additional payments that happened in 2015 under Obama administration. And there's another one too that came from France. And I know some of you watching, I know how you feel about the whole fact that France should be giving reparations to Haiti. So you might cringe when you see this. But if Marianne would have just looked at his phone to see what he was referring to, I don't know.
This is not right. This is not right. Actually, I'm more than glad to.
You cut me off. I was talking and you cut me off saying it was anti-Semitic. That's not what it was. I was telling the truth. I was telling the truth. You cut me off and accused me of being anti-Semitic. I'm speaking for my answers. I'm telling the truth. And I don't care who doesn't want to hear it.
The United States has not given $1.
Well, the facts disagree with you.
The United States has not given
The facts disagree with you.
Exactly. I just saw your comment and it disappeared. Shoot balls. Solely. LOL. So that story of Marianne being a hothead is real. You know, that's exactly the same type of feeling I got when I saw this video. I was like, oh, that's not a good look, considering the articles that came out, right? There may be one more clip here. And it goes on to say, Marcel says, do not accuse me of being a liar or saying something anti-Semitic when I spoke the truth. The U.S. has facilitated reparations to Holocaust survivors or their descendants. One could even discuss the billions America sends to Israel each year. I sent the articles to her director. And so that's the gentleman that actually was on the panel on Bad Faith podcast. That's him that you saw walking around the table.
The facts disagree with you. The facts disagree with you.
Can we talk afterwards?
Sure.
We can move on to
I don't know if I can continue if this gentleman is going to cut me off.
Well, you shouldn't accuse me of being anti-Semitic.
He said many things.
We know you're not.
Exactly.
We know you're not, so it doesn't matter.
And I'm sorry that we
Like
have
for
a
you to
chance
see.
because I do wish.
Also, you guys notice there's not many people in this room. And this is South Carolina. And South Carolina is now the first primary state. That was not a good look. That was not a good look for her to respond that way. I really do think she needs to issue an apology. I really do.
I have stood for reparations. I do stand for reparations. I think reparations for slavery are important, actually. This gentleman is speaking to the issue of the money, so very quickly I will say this, because I think it is important. My reparations plan is in my proposal, is for $1 trillion. This gentleman is absolutely correct, actually. There were between 4 and 5 million enslaved people at the end of World War, at the end of the Civil War. Tecumseh Sherman did promise every formerly enslaved family of 40 acres and a mule. And that was a very serious thing. If you were to look at financial remuneration in terms of the value in today's terms, there would be trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. I think that this is really for Black Americans to decide. It's not for me to decide. You have a candidate here which is suggesting a plan that I believe in our generation could be politically feasible. If you feel, no, it's simply not enough money, we want 14 or 15 trillion, then I suppose you can, if you wish, wait for a president who might, the candidate who might say 14 or 15 trillion.
No. See, I don't like this response when she says, if you feel that it should be 14 to 15 trillion, then you should wait for a candidate who will propose 14 to 15 trillion. If the data shows that that's what it should be, or at least be starting out with, why can't you just change the numbers that you have for your plan? I felt like that was kind of a weak response. Like, if you feel it should be more, then you can wait for a candidate who is going to make it more. That's not fair. That's not right. That's not right. That's just like Joe Biden saying, like, well, I know some of you guys want Medicare for all, but I'm not going to do that. So you can either go with the expansion of Obamacare, or you can try to wait for a president who's going to give you Medicare for all. That's not cool, because they know, she and Marianne knows, most likely there's no one else that's going to come around and do this anytime soon. So that's not cool.
Not for me to decide. In terms of the council, reparations council, instead of direct money given to descendants of enslaved people, the issue is, I believe, if I owe you money, I don't get to tell you how to spend it. So I don't think it's for white people to tell Black.
Okay, so another piece here, and I'll show it from her website. She doesn't want to actually give cash reparations, right? So there's different levels of reparations. Like, some people can talk about like fixing the education system, et cetera, yada, yada. But the idea, at least from what I've seen from the organizations, from ADOS and from FBA, cash reparations should be a part of it. Marianne doesn't want to do that. Marianne wants to give the money to Black organizations and let those organizations figure out what to do with it. No. I'll show you her website in just a second, but to the point where she called him anti-Semitic, which I think is incredibly dangerous. Okay. Even Afeni issued a response to this. She said, I thought it was common knowledge that Jewish people got reparations for the Holocaust. When did this become controversial to say? You see the problem now? And she even put the screenshot, which shows Germany offers one of the largest Holocaust reparations packages and a special fund for Ukrainians. So she shows that screenshot there. But what I'm really concerned about is the fact that now, because of the way that Marcel was treated, and by the way, me and Marcel don't agree on everything. Me and Marianne don't agree on everything. Me and Afeni don't agree on everything. But when it comes to that particular issue, was Marcel correct? Let's see. Let's dabble a little bit here. Now, according to this is what Marcel was referring to. The Obama administration earmarks $12 million for Holocaust survivors. This article was published October 2nd, 2015. This is what he was pulling up on his phone. Marianne didn't look at this. Now, remember, he said that the U.S. government facilitated it. Marianne kept trying to tell him this did not happen. So I don't know what's happening here then. It says funds to be distributed over 5 years, 1/4 of 130,000 U.S. victims of Nazi persecution live under the poverty line. So I'll just point out the numbers here. This is not a long article. It says the Obama administration, make this bigger. The Obama administration has awarded $12 million for the assistance to Holocaust survivors. The allocation from the Department of Health and Human Services to the Jewish Federations of North America to be dispersed over 5 years is part of an initiative launched in late 2013 by Vice President Joe Biden to address the needs of survivors in the United States, 1/4 of whom live below the poverty line. So to that point, what Marcel was trying to say is that even when it comes to descendants of slavery, African-American descendants of slavery in this country, it has never happened for us, though. This is the point that he's trying to address. So according to this article, Marcel is correct. This did happen under the Obama administration. It goes on to say, combined with matching private funds, the approximately $2.5 million per year over the 5 years will support $4.1 million in programming annually for organizations that help Holocaust survivors. According to JFNA, the funds will be used to advance innovations in person-centered, trauma-informed supportive services for Holocaust survivors. So again, hold on, close that there. With this award, we will be able to advance our efforts to provide crucial services to vulnerable survivors, including those living in poverty, those in the Orthodox Jewish community, and those from the former Soviet Union. That comes from Mark Wilf, the chairman of the JFNA's National Holocaust Survivor Initiative. So I just, and that wasn't the only time. France, this was also 2015. This was in November. France to pay $60 million in reparations to Holocaust survivors in the U.S. and beyond. Now, this one threw me for a loop because I'm not here to say that they shouldn't have reparations, But France still hasn't paid reparations to Haiti. So several thousand Holocaust survivors in the US, Israel, and other countries can now apply for compensation from a $60 million reparation fund for victims who were transported to Nazi death camps aboard French trains. It goes on to say, the state-owned French train company SNCF is accused of helping to deport more than 70,000 Jews while France was under Nazi occupation and the control of the Vichy government. Last year, the US and France brokered the agreement to offer financial compensation to those who were deported, as well as their spouses and orphaned children. The amount of 60 million was hotly debated. So it's just, France is expected to wire 60 million lump sum to the US Treasury by November 30th, and the money will be distributed by the State Department sometime after May 2016. So I don't see anyone making this up. CBS News reported this. Now, to the point, the other point that Marcel had about the money. So on Marianne's website, I'm going to show you what she has on her site, and then I'm going to show you what the experts say that amount should be. So on her website, under the issues, you can find a section that says reparations, race relations, and reconciliation. I want to get to the money portion. Make this a little bit bigger for you. She gives the big spiel there as to why it is needed and it's a debt that's owed. But let's get to the money. Specifics. According to my plan, reparations for slavery will be paid in the amount of a minimum of $1 trillion. 1 trillion. Hold on to that amount. This is what Marcel was trying to correct her on, that this number is too low. These payments will be made over a period of 20 years to a reparations council made up of Black leaders from across the spectrum of American academic, cultural, and political leaders. This piece right here. The council would include 30 to 50 members, all descendants of enslaved people, and all who have some scholarly, cultural, and political connection to the issue of reparations. The council, not the American government, would determine how the money is to be dispersed. No. No. Why are you allowing a council to decide how to use the money? Now, Marianne said in her speech, and she said this before, it's not her right to decide how people should spend that money. Got it. But there's a difference between not deciding how people should spend the money and giving the money directly to the people. And it seems like, based on what I'm seeing here, she doesn't want to give the money directly to the people. She wants to give the money to a reparations council and let them decide how the money should be used. Here's the problem. What if the reparations council decides not to give the money to the people? What if the reparations council decides, yes, let's use the money to fix the education system, which I have no problem with fixing the education system. Let's use it to improve community centers, yada, yada. And by the time all that money is gone, before you know it, none of you guys got any cash payments in your hand. That is the problem. And who is supposed to be a part of this council? Who are these leaders that are supposed to be kept? Some of these leaders, some of even the civil rights leaders from back in the day, they're not making too many good decisions nowadays. Okay, let's just be real. So to me, this makes no sense. I don't understand that. This is just another way to prevent actually giving Black people, or excuse me, those who are lineage based, this is another way of preventing them having the money directly in hand. When Japanese Americans that were part of the Japanese internment camps were given reparations, they were given direct cash payments. It seems like to me, the only time people don't want to give direct cash payments in reference to reparations is when it is Black people. All of a sudden, this money got to go to something else. No. Just give the money directly to the people. I don't get this. I really don't get it. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I'm not a part of these organizations, but I know people who are a part of those organizations, and they would not be cool with that. And I'm really surprised by that, because I know Marianne has spoken to people from the ADAS community, and I'm really surprised that she doesn't want to give those cash payments directly to the people. Now, the problem with the 1 trillion, I want to show you why that number is significantly low. Let me go down here, get rid of the video. This article in particular here, we go to the finances, calculating reparations. Let me highlight this. Calculating reparations. Now, this is coming from Dr. Sandy Darity, who's done extensive research on this, and co-author Andrea Kirsten Mullen. A new book called From Here to Equality, Reparations for Black Americans in the 21st Century, that analyzes past estimates for reparation amounts and offer new ones. Listen to this. The University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign economist Larry Neal estimated, this is why Marianne's number is wrong, in 1983 that America owed 1.4 trillion in reparations to Black descendants of enslaved people. 1.4 trillion in 1983. And Marianne right now, as a part of her reparations platform, has 1 trillion. If it was 1.4 trillion in 1983, why is it 1 trillion in 2023? It is lower than what they recommended in the 80s. This is why Marcel was talking about this. This is why he told her her numbers were incorrect. According to Darity and Mullen, that 1983 figure compounded at 4%, 5%, and 6% interest by 2019 would be 5.7 trillion, 8.1 trillion, and 11.4 trillion respectively per their calculations. So again, her numbers are significantly low. I retweeted Marcel's tweet, and I did ask Marianne to apologize because I think she owes Marcel an apology. Number one, for calling him anti-Semitic, and number two, not listening to him about the calculations. It is what it is. I'll go to some of the comments here, and then we'll get into the next story. I don't know how else to say it, man. I don't know how much to say it, but the data has already been done. Let's go up. Lambert says Marianne doesn't want to piss off the centrists. She wants by offering a fair deal. That could be part of it. Betsy says, imagine if the 100 billion plus given to Ukraine had been given to Black Americans instead. You know? Thanks for the super chat, Roger. Blacks whose ancestors came to the U.S. by force, not choice. Right. If someone was asking in the chat, what do you mean by lineage? Thank you for that. Thank you for the super chat, Kelly. Finally caught a live stream. Thank you for all you do, Sabby. Thank you so much, Kelly. The Oracle and Bernie Sanders helped facilitate the efforts of the State Department to aid the Holocaust survivors and their descendants in securing reparations. There you go. Thank you for the super chat, Graham. I've spoken to Trump supporters who are in favor of a basic income / reparations for all American citizens. Would this be unfair? Poll your audience. So there's a difference between basic income and reparations. Universal basic income, that's for everybody, regardless of what you make, regardless of your ethnicity, regardless of your history that you have with this country. Reparations, however, is for descendants of slavery because it was a debt that was owed to those people. We never received the promise that General Sherman promised us, which was 40 acres and a mule. And that's why we don't really have, for the most part, generational wealth. But it's not just because of what happened after slavery, it's also the Jim Crow laws. It also goes back to the Black Wall Streets that were burned. It also goes back, this goes all the way up into the 90s, which includes Joe Biden's crime bill. Thank you for the super chat, Susan. The USA defended the Jews by going to war, yet enslaved, murdered, and robbed Black folks. What is going on? Yeah. Yeah, man. Thank you, Delthea. The BMC doesn't need to handle the money. I can handle my money all by myself. F a reparation council. Yeah, I don't get that at all. I really don't. I'll take the comment on Rockfin, Eric. Just give people the money. Thank you for the tip, Chuck. Does Marianne not realize Marcel Dixon could be an ally of hers? Marcel is running against Jim Clyburn in South Carolina. Marianne is finished. Thanks, Sabby, for your great work. Thank you so much for that comment, Chuck. That is actually a really good point. He could be an ally for her. I don't know if that's still going to work out now. I don't know if she contacted him and they had a talk or not, but South Carolina, first primary state, not starting out too well.